Alright, trying to make this nice and quick. I'm gonna try to show you one way to undervolt your graphics card, and it can help you save on, electricity during these times. In the Europe, it's a real problem currently. Also make your computer be more silent, run, the fans being not ramping up all the time. In some cases, it can help improve the clocks, but this is not the case. You will most likely lose performance. How much? It's gonna vary. So first off, I would recommend that you get a utility called GPUZ. I will try my best to remember to link in the description below. You run it. Small little utility. Oh, right, that's, whoop, there we go, just one instance. And you can see your specification, but we're gonna focus on the sensors. And there are two particular one. We have the GPU clock, and we have the GPU, let me go, voltage. Now, I've already done this, so I'm gonna first mitigate my settings here. This is the second program. We're gonna get into this later on, but I'm going to restore everything first. There we go. So this is my default 1700 megahertz, 770. It's not being utilized. GPU voltage is sitting at 0.937 voltage. It is because I'm enabled my second monitor, and when you do that, it will always pin the voltage at the highest. This should be more like in the range of 0.2 on a single monitor desktop setup, but that doesn't really matter. It will work, should work for anything anyways. Could be fun to try to look it up. If I can do a quick, I'm just curious here. I'm sorry for this. I forget about this. So let's see, 0.973, and we apply. Yeah, this will also lower your multi-monitor power draw. I think it's so weird that when you have multiple monitors, your graphics card has to pump up at its highest voltage and stuff like that. So this will help also with your multi-monitor system, but let's go back to default. In a single monitor, you will already, if you're not gaming, you will have a much lower clock. So another tip is, if you want to save a little bit of the power with an NVIDIA graphics card at least, is that if you don't really have to use two monitors, turn one off, so hopefully it will drop your voltage a little bit extra and save you a little bit of extra power draw. But yeah, so you run GPU-C and you keep an eye on the voltage and on the GPU clock primarily. And then I recommend getting something heavy game or 3D Mark. That's something that you can loop. Heaven maybe, but I find the GPU for maximizing its utilization. Quake 2 RTX works very well. It's also free, to my knowledge, absolutely 100% free. So you can get it, you can install it, select shareware version if you don't own the full game or just interested in doing what I'm gonna do. So install it through Steam, run it. I like to run it in window mode. It's just easy to keep an eye on this. And one important thing is, if we go in here into the settings first, you can see that I'm running at 120 frames here, and GPU load is still very high at 97 here, but we really want to max out our GPU. It's very, very important. So we're gonna do this. Obviously is different for every application that you use to test this, and but the key is to pump the graphical settings up, and I like this because it enables RTX ray tracing, and that both the NVIDIA and the latest ATI graphics ATI, that's old school, AMD graphics card should support. And especially for NVIDIA, it's very important to really get those Tensor RTX cores, pumping. I would have loved if it also supported some form of DLSS to really push all aspects of the graphics card. But I'm gonna have to try DLSS to push that after this tutorial. But so, first off, we don't want vertical sync. Pump all the performance. Just have our graphics card running at the max. Turn on all of this, all the settings. Crank this one up to the high settings. We're gonna turn on upscaling. Don't use this one. This is helping performance. We don't want it. We want to really just hammer our graphics card. Turn all off this one and stuff. The filtering. Pretty much everything you can find to maximize your graphics card out. And then we also are going to do disable dynamic resolution scaling. And I'm going to push this to 200%. Because for my RTX 3070, now we are at 44 FPS instead of the previously optimized 120. And my graphics card here is going to really be working. And GPU voltage, you can see it is going at 1.757. It is really pumping voltage here. It's actually pumping more voltage than earlier. And we are running at 1905 GPU clock. So you keep playing. Until everything is stable, the temperature should be stable, the GPU clock should be stable, the voltage should be stable. It is interesting though that my GPU voltage right now is actually a lot higher than previous, and I'm guessing it has to do with my multi-monitor setup actually. So if you have two monitors, it might be a good idea to do this test with multiple monitors enabled. My temperature is very quickly stabilized. My graphics card have a fixed, curve for it, so it's going to be staying at around 70% as long as it can handle it. So run around a little bit, or you have it standing maybe in the background for like 30 minutes something. So play the game a little bit. But everything needs to be stabilized. It's actually really interesting. I'm gonna just restart this program because I'm just curious to see why it's boosting so much higher. So when I have my dual monitors on, it is actually boosting quite a lot higher than in my single monitor setup. The voltage is also being pumped quite a bit higher. The temperature is the same. That was an interesting finding. I wasn't expecting it to be like that the graphics card would work faster when you use multiple monitors. Because in single monitor, in the default, it lands around 1845 on the GPU clock. So this is 1830 to 1845, somewhere there. So when it's go like 1920, it's like 90 megahertz difference there. So 80, 70, 80 megahertz difference. Higher clocks when I'm running in multi-monitor setup. It's a weird behavior. It makes things a little bit interesting. So we're not gonna do extensive testing here because I did manage to get, the working setup for me. Hopefully that will work with multiple monitors, but we're gonna run this guide just quickly. So let's say you run this for 30 minutes or an hour. Everything is fine. It's stable. You can see that my clock is slowly dropped a little bit below 18, about 1900 megahertz there. So it's going to, stabilize itself somewhere. It's a really beautiful ray tracing game here. I was about to say RTX, but RTX is not. That's just an NVIDIA name for the graphics card. It's not the ray tracing. It's just a brand name there. I'm just trying here a little bit to really try to push them extra. But alright, let's say this is stable at 1905. And the core voltage, GPU voltage, as we can see in on the right there on the GPU C, let's say that is stabilized as 105. Alright, the clock is stabilized at 1905. It is jumping a little bit, but it's very difficult to get a 100%, but 90% of the time I feel 1905 GPU voltage, 105 at 90%. So we can close the game down. I think that's nice to do, to really just reset everything. I also like to close GPU C just because sometimes monitoring applications can interfere with each other. And then I recommend getting MSI Afterburner. Again, I'm gonna try my best, post it, link to it down below. Should be working fine with AMD and NVIDIA graphics card. And here we have it. Make sure that you're pressing this one. Everything should be reset to default. Uncheck this one if you have it checked. If you use this application earlier, we don't want to in by mistake apply bad undervolting at the boot. So this one you can use later on. So it is reset, everything is good. All right, we hold down Control and press F. All right, and then we remember it said 105, so that's about here, 105, and that that went to 1900 megahertz. So we want to drop it a little bit, take it in small steps, maybe 0.1. So maybe we can get it to be 0.5, maybe 0.95, but it might be better to go in 0.05 steps. So you start with like this one, and then you remember it was 1900, 1905, so you set it to the closest, either one step above or one step below. So let's set it to 1902. We can press L. This is locking everything to this frequency. And then you can boot up. You can use, in this stage, when you know the core GPU voltage, you can write it down, 1.05 for me, and then the core clock. You can then use the built-in statistic here. You can see here, you're gonna see the temperatures, you're gonna see the core clock, and then we can verify when we are done with GPU C. I find it just easy. Unfortunately, I can't get GPU voltage monitoring here in the Afterburner, which is sad, but we run this one again. Don't have to have this one open at the moment. And then you jump in one more time. It's actually quite interesting. I was running this previously, one single monitor, the clock being lower. I wasn't recording anything using OBS. I got 57 FPS in this place. Now I get 44. It's quite a significant drop actually when trying to use your RTX card to the max and recording and everything. And then obviously you repeat every step. You see the GPU tempo is supposed to be lower, but you play till it's stabilized. Hopefully your graphics card is also going to be quieter. And you can verify the core clock. Setting it to 1905 here, pushed it to 1920. So it's actually running perfectly fine about, it was being like 1905, 1920, so it's running fine. It's hitting that mark. So what you can then do is, I'm not gonna run this because I don't want to crash anything when I'm recording. It's a single PC here. If it crash, you go back in no matter if it crashes, you're gonna do one up. You go to 125 and you do the same thing. You reset it by pressing L to unlock it again. You reset it. If it crashed and one didn't work, then you go to 125 and you adjust that to the same value and you press L and you press apply and you try it one more time, right? This is the apply button. If it doesn't crash, you can press L to unlock this one. You get to this menu again by pressing Ctrl plus F. Reset. If it doesn't crash at 1 volt, you can try the next one, 1975. You can bump it up to 1902. You press L, you press apply, and then you run your game. You keep doing this till games crashes. Then you go one step up, or if you feel that your graphics card is too loud or too hot, you obviously have to keep going down and also going down in the frequency. Now when you are done, you feel you found a sweet spot between how loud your graphics card and what the performance is. Everything there seems stable and nice. You go in here and you keep an eye on, you remember this one, it's supposed to be 1902. Be going with 1902. Doesn't matter, 1902. So you look at the far one of the further ones away here. It's stabilized here, so this one is 1950, this one is 1950, right? But you want it to be set to maximum boost to be 1905 or 1902 in the case here, because that was the stable one. So what you do then is you go to the core clock here, drag it down. This is weird. It shouldn't be. Let's reset again. There we go. So yeah, you go to the reset everything. Every step here. Between changes is always press the reset button to default. Right. So go to the further here. Doesn't really matter which one. And it's supposed to be 1902 here. You have this little slider. You can drag it. Or you can use your arrow keys. And obviously it should be set to that one. It should match the maximum core clock. When this curve, the top frequency here, matches with the default, the core clock, if you take it down, that is going to force your GPU to never be able to boost over that clock. And that is very important. Because if you don't do this step, your graphic card might still overshoot the frequency, and that can cause a crash. So you need to, find this value. If you just want to be, I don't want to do this, you could go with something like 200, 250 just down the slider. It should work, but I prefer to tweak it like this to just maximize everything. There are benefits both to just going lower is beneficial, because if you're running applications that just uses your GPU a little bit, it might only boost to a lower clock, being even quieter, even saving more. But pretty much most of my GPU applications, they will cause the graphics card to just boost everything up to the highest. So that's why I just like to, I want good performance. Even at the lower settings, I want a good performance. But I don't want high noise and the highest power draw for, to gain an extra 5 to 10 FPS in some games. I don't feel that's good, so I do this way. And then when you've done this one, you again go to where you were. It was stable. Let's say you get to 1 here, in my case. And then I drag it up to the 1902 mark. We press apply. And you should get a curve that is, well, it shouldn't look like this, which is very interesting. Let's try this one more time. 1902. Apply. And then we go again on the 1 milli. This one should match up. There we go. That's better. There we go. It should be a nice little slider. And pressing the furthest one should show the same as pressing the top one. So now when you apply it, you run it again. You verify and verify, try different games or applications, and when you feel it is good and stable, what you do is that you press the save button here. You can press one of your presets here, and then you can also mark this one. This means that on every boot, this will be applied by default, and you should have optimized graphics card for, not for performance, but for performance and, power draw and efficiency, comparing to the noise level and everything like that. So my curve ended up like this on my RTX 3070. I'm gonna try this, my curve on the multi-monitor. Since it seems to differ, it was very curious why dual monitors pumped my voltage and my, both my voltage and my frequency. So I'm gonna maybe have to redo my step. But what you can do, just an extra step, if you are really brave, like maybe we could say, is that you can try increase memory clock a little bit, but then you need to do this, trial and error again. But for me, I found in the single monitor, I did all these steps first to get the base just boost clock matching, everything with maximized noise and power. And then I tried applying memory overclock, and it seemed to work stable for me actually, and gain some extra little oomph, which basically, makes it as good as the stock, but as a lower volume and a lower power draw, which is really awesome. So I can get a little bit more performance, but I'm gonna have to get a much more louder, very audible, higher noise level from my graphics card when gaming. And the power draw obviously is going to be higher, and it's going to be like, it's not really that noticeable. It's a few frames. If it's 5% difference in performance, or maybe even 10, it's very rarely it's going to be affecting the gameplay that much, and that you can't counter it with just one setting in your game to just get the performance up with very minimal loss in a visible quality. So, let's quickly just run through this just for a quick summarizing. So GPU C, you go to the sensors tab, you run something heavy. Quake 2 RTX is, to my knowledge, free, so you can get that. Max it out. Your GPU usage, everything should be just pinned. You should not have any VSync or anything on. Use upscaling, anything. RTX if your graphics are supported. And then you run it till you see that GPU clock stabilize, and that the temperature is stable, and you also that the voltage is stable. This is more what it was running in single monitor, so interesting. And you can also look that the GPU load should be at the 100 to 99 mark, to really make sure that everything is maxed out. Write down those values, then you go to MSI Afterburner, right? Make sure that you don't have any pre-applied profile, so you press the restore, you press Ctrl plus F, you remember the value you had of the GPU voltage, so let's say it was 1, right? 1, so you want to try to lower it by 0.5, that's a good step to start with. You go here, and you remember that it was pinned at, let's say it wanted to go at just, the something here, 1920, right? So you do that, you drag that point to the values that you write down as a stable one in the GPU-C, from GPU-C there. And you can see then that, it was running default 1 here at 1920. So now we're dropping it by 0.5 to 1950 to the same. Press L. Then you run something heavy again. If it doesn't crash, you can try going lower. If you feel that the noise level and the performance level is good, you can just stop. But keep going until you are happy. So then when you're happy, you found, your values, press restore everything to default. And then let's say you ended up by 1925 at, at 1890 voltage. So then you want, to lower this, just use the core clock, take it down 200 megahertz and be happy with it, or do my way. By lowering there, you're pressing the back furthest one and you keep looking here. So 1890, all right. This is the maximum. So by using 75 core offset, it should be forcing my GPU to never boost over this. There we go. And then you go again to the 1925 and you drag it up to the 1890. You press apply. Now you have here 1890 on the 1925, and it's the same all the way. It will never boost higher. It will never go higher in clock. It will never go higher in the voltage and then the 1925. And you have optimized your performance here. In light threaded, lightly GPU utilizing application of videos, you will have max performance available. But again, you can lower this. Just go 200, something like that, 200, 250, what you feel should be nice. And you're going to see that the lowest boost here is now 900. Right? So then if we go, there we go. So what happens is that you have very, very lightly GPU applications, maybe emulators. Dropping the core clock more could be a good one, because it might keep, the GPU at a lower, but that is very dependent of the application. And to my knowledge, whenever I use something, even most of my common emulators, my GPU just goes to the max core clock and voltage frequency anyways. But you can do it. Definitely try this, because now you can optimize for your emulation if you're playing older games and you have a beefier, you have a beefier GPU. It might not, be able to, not need to boost. So then you can optimize the level when you're using your emulator and everything, and then you can still have a great performance in games that demand it. I'm doing this kind of guide so I don't forget these steps myself, and also because I think it's fun to just share it and get it out there to you guys that are tech interested. This is not if you aren't, willing to crash your computer, if you aren't into, clocking or changing or tweaking. not an everyday thing to do for every user. So, because it can cause instabilities. If you are more concerned about, being able to play your games and nothing gonna happen with your computer, this is not the way to go. Because even if you found this to be stable for 1 hour, 2 hours, and you play games for a couple of weeks, it can still be that maybe a month later you enter a tournament or something online for whatever game, and you game for 6 hours or maybe more, and then it can crash because this wasn't stable. The default mode is supposed to be, and in most cases are, 99.9% stable. So you gotta really be aware of that. But yeah, I wanted to show you this, and I'm gonna go back to stability testing my setup here with the multi-monitor setup, I'm guessing, so to see what I end up on. But it's really nice to get a quieter graphics card and lower a little bit of the temperatures here, and to get less power draw, since electricity is going to skyrocket here in Europe, so it's a shitty situation. Would be kind of suck if you just can't game because it's too expensive to turn your computer on, but that's a whole nother story. So thank you for watching, and hope this helps everyone or encouraged someone to try this one, and see you in the next video.